Stealth, misdirection, and overwhelming force. When you least expect it, that's the way of the Raven Guard. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be painting up a Contemptor Dreadnought from the Raven Guard. Now the Raven Guard's biggest feature is their black armor, which is kind of like that stealthy kind of feel. Now I've been painting black armor for a bit, and I've been doing it the method where you paint the fat highlight and then the soft or the sharper head highlight right after. But today we're going to jump into a little new way of doing it. A lot of people have been doing this style with contrast paint. Today we're going to use a little bit different of a method, so I hope you learned something, and let's dive into painting the Raven Guard. We're going to start using the makeup sponge to build up the zenithal highlight. To do that, I'm going to start with rubbing off a majority of this P3 coal black and really not paying too much concern, but just trying to base coat a lot of this while leaving the black in the recesses. Next, I'm going to mix a little bit of Thunderhawk Blue into the coal black just to kind of start building up the layers, going from the black to coal black to the Thunderhawk Blue. Now jumping into the Thunderhawk Blue and slowly going up higher and higher where the light source will be hitting the armor plates. The next step, I'm taking gray and mixing it with the Thunderhawk Blue, and we're just getting higher and higher to where the light would be hitting the armor plates. And finally after this, I'm mixing completely to gray so I can build up the highest of highlights. And we are going to be putting black over this, so you can afford to be a little messy. It's good to note that the higher you get with the highlight, rub off more of the paint on the sponge, because you want to put the lightest of pigments on those highest points so you can have a little bit more control when putting the paint down. And this would be the case where I'm trying to take off a lot of the paint. I have off-white and I'm just trying to hit just some of those edges without making mistakes that we just worked on building up that gradient from the coal black to Thunderhawk to gray to white. To do the black wash, I'm doing ultra matte varnish mixed with model color black. And as I'm painting it over all of the zenithal highlights that I've previously done, I'm just making sure I don't allow any kind of pooling to happen with the black and just keeping the brush moving and going over all parts of the Contemptor Dreadnought here. And this is it. Now let's start jumping to edge highlighting. I'm starting with just that medium gray and hitting kind of the main highlights. I'm typically a person who likes more minimalistic style highlighting, so I'm just hitting the edges with medium gray first and picking up the ones who have sort of the highlight that was created using that black wash earlier. I do hope to talk more about edge highlighting in another video, but just to note, use the side of the brush when painting such large models like this. Now the Contemptor Dreadnought isn't that big, but you have those edges, so you can use them and use the side of the brush because it creates a little bit easier of a way to have more control with the edge highlighting. Now with the gray highlights finished, I'm working now with a little bit of off-white mixed with the gray. Then I will move to straight off-white, but I'm hitting just those very top points of the armor where the light will be hitting. And this is going to take a while, so it's a process. Edge highlighting can be fun or it can be annoying, but really take the time to do these highlights because it's going to really sell the black even more. Now I want to create a little bit more contrast to the armor plates because they're so big and I have a lot of space to work with. So I'm just taking the off-white and just doing small little scratches along the armor. And this is kind of the only battle damage I'll do on this model, but you can go farther using other sponges to build up those kind of damaged places, but this is just what I did. Now I'm going to start working on the whites. To do this, I'm mixing medium gray mixed with my off-white. And I'm knowing that I'm doing this, being fully aware that, again, my paint is thinned down to kind of that milky consistency. And I'm preparing myself to do 2 to 3 layers of this because I don't want any kind of streaks or anything with the whites. And also to be mindful, don't get on the black. So I'm being careful, but knowing I'm going to do multiple layers of this. This indeed took 2 layers of that medium gray mixed with the off-white. And I was lucky I did not make any mistakes, but if you did make a mistake going on the black, you could easily mix a little bit of the Thunderhawk blue with some black and glaze over it with a couple layers and it should be completely fine. Now for the metals, I'm using Iron Hand Steel from Citadel and just picking out all those metal areas on the Dreadnought. And after that, just using a Nolan oil wash, kind of thinned down. I don't like to use a lot of GW style washes because they often have a little bit of like a shininess to them. But when you do, be careful just not to let them pull because when they pull, they get really weird. Now to shade the white, I'm using the medium gray thinned down even more so I can just get that medium gray inside of the recesses of all the white areas. Now, if you were to make a mistake, it should be easy to cover up, but this is a really easy way of doing white where you're not relying on, let's say, using a contrast paint, and you can have a little bit more control of the areas that you're adding your shadows to. To start highlighting this white, I'm using the off-white. Then after I use off-white, I'll start hitting the final edges of the white with more of like a pure white. But I start with off-white from the base just so I can build up a little bit of those layers. Now highlighting the metals, I think I'm using something called sterling silver from Model Color. I think I forgot this in the past 2 videos, the highlighting metal. Now I think it's sterling silver. To keep things simple, I'm using the exact same red for the missile area along with the eyes. So I'm going to base coat it with this first darker red, then I'll highlight one time on the missile pods with the vermilion red from Model Color, if I think that's the name of it. Now that I've put the dark red on the eyes, we can start highlighting a little bit with a vermilion red. And I'm just hitting the tips of the missiles, and that's as high as I will highlight. If you wanted to go higher with the highlighting here, you could add a little bit of ice yellow mixed with that red and then go a little bit higher. And for the eyes, I'm just hitting the bottom right and the bottom left corner of the lens and then doing just one little dot of white on the top corner. Now I want to do a bit of a glow slash overheated barrel. To do this, I'm going to put off-white in all of the recesses of the gun area. Then after I carefully put the white in all those areas, I'm going to use Model Air fluorescent red and go through all the portholes that I just did the white. Then after doing that, I want to use the makeup sponge over the whole area to create a little bit of that OSL effect. And the last step is adding fluorescent yellow just to the center of all those orange areas. And this made me think, what color does a melted gun shoot like? I couldn't find many reference materials to it. Next, to start building up the object source lighting, I'm adding little white dots where I believe the light from that melted barrel will be hitting, and this helps create a little bit of like that main tips of where the light is hitting. Now I'm using the red fluorescent color again, and I'm treating this a little bit as a glaze. I have messed up in the past by putting way too much fluorescent color when doing this. It is best to do thinned down layers and treat it as a glaze because there's no going back. You kind of have to fix things if you mess up. And I have messed things up with fluorescent paints. And I will say, I did end up using the makeup sponge to build up more of the object source lighting here. I didn't film it, but it helped a lot over glazing. So maybe try that when you're using this, using the makeup sponge to build it up. Now to do the chapter markings, I believe, on the knee, I found something interesting. I traced first with water to see where I was going to do the letters, and it really worked. So try it. Put water down first, trace out your letters, and voila, it was great. But doing these kind of hand letterings can be tricky. It's best to go thin first and kind of treat it as a trace, then build up from that. And finally adding a water transfer. I will do a video on water transfers. I don't like them. I use that decal set and then finally the decal softener, and I use model color ones, the Vallejo brand, and not the Microsol ones. I've heard Microsol's better, but this Vallejo one is working quite well for me, but the softener helps a lot here. And this was a lot easier putting this on when compared to doing any kind of Space Marine shoulder. And I almost forgot the lens when I was painting this. I base it with scale color dark forest green, then mix errata green and kind of hit that bottom part. And then the final part of the bottom right of the lens is adding a little bit of ice yellow. And with any lens, you have to end with that little white dot. And to do this is you got to get as much paint off of the brush as you can and kind of just put that small little dot from the tip of the brush. And I like to use green fluorescent paint when I finish up lenses, where I hit it on the bottom of the lens, and then after that I like to do a little bit of a OSL, and I just paint it right on top of the chest right there. And there you have it, one Raven Guard, Contemptor Dreadnought, ready to deliver justice from the shadows. I'm incredibly happy how this thing turned out, especially that black armor and that contrast I was able to build up. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you enjoy Warhammer 40k material, I paint 40k, 30k, and I love Battletech. So like, subscribe, and I really hope to see you guys next time on The Painted Topher.